As Americans, there are few times in our history that we have been prouder than we were on this week when Gabby Douglas won the All-American Gymnastics gold medal. This 4'11", 16-year-old from Virginia Beach, Virginia, wowed the world, brought a bright smile from President Obama and tears of joy from Oprah Winfrey herself. 2 years ago, Gabby, at 14 years old, took a leap of faith. She said, I really need to have a change in my coaching, and I want Leon Chow. Chow had coached Sean Johnson to Olympic gold 4 years ago in Beijing. The only thing that was that his training center was in Des Moines, Iowa. And so her mother, Natalie Hawkins, just could not see sending her baby across the country to go all the way to Iowa. But Gabby and her sisters insisted that this was her time, this was her season, and this was where she needed to be. The move was made easier thanks in part to Travis and Missy Parton, who offered to be a host family for her to live with them and their 4 daughters in Des Moines, Iowa. Gabby welcomed them and was welcomed by Miss Parton. Miss Parton, in fact, says she went from being the baby in her house to being the oldest in my house. And it took her from a little time to get used to us, but after getting used to us, then she became the big sister to my daughters Haley 10, Leah and Lexi 7, and Elissa 6, and quickly bonded with the Douglas family. For Hawkins, it was a huge relief to know her daughter was in Parton's caring hands, and together Natalie and Missy raised an Olympian and found a lifelong friendship. I want us to turn to a story of another young girl who won the greatest gold medal of all time, and her record will never be beaten. If you would, you can stand and turn with me to Luke chapter 1, verses 26 through 32. Luke chapter 1, verses 26 through 32. And I'm going to read it according to the New American Standard Bible. Now in the 6th month, angel Gabriel was sent from God to a city in Galilee called Nazareth, to a virgin engaged to a man whose name was Joseph, of the descendants of David. And the virgin's name was Mary. And coming in, he said to her, Greetings, favored one, the Lord is with you. But she was very perplexed at this statement and kept pondering what kind of situation this was. The angel said to her, Do not be afraid, Mary, for you have found favor with God. And behold, you will conceive in your womb and bear a son, and you shall name him Jesus. He will be great, and he will be called the Son of the Most High. And the Lord will give him the throne of his father David. Thank you. You may be seated. Gabby's story is not just about happy times and victory. In fact, she's in a season of teen years that are filled with victory and defeat. You see, Gabby was not just separated from her mother and sisters, but also from her dad. When she was 9, her father, Air Force Sergeant Timothy Douglas, went to war in Iraq and Afghanistan. Gabby once said on NBC TV, I just had to pray to God just to keep him safe and to tell the angels to keep my dad safe and come home. He did come home on June 29th to see her Olympic trials, and it was the first time he had seen his daughter since October 2010. He was proudly there and held the American flag that read, Go Gabby, Douglas, love Dad. Timothy Douglas was stationed in Afghanistan as a part of the Air National Guard 203rd Red Horse Squadron until his latest deployment ended last October. He is home now, but things change, and Gabby's parents have gone through the stress of war and the stress of separation. And while she was training in Iowa, then her parents were dealing with the difficulties of a distant relationship and the wearing down of that relationship until now. Just the other day, as Gabby was there, we saw the pictures of her mother and her sister and her brother and her host family, but her dad was absent. It was a time of victory and defeat. It was not just a time of victory and defeat simply because he was not absent, because the explanation, he says, is that he was unable to get a flight to London at the time. But the truth is deeper than that, because his parents are separated and going through a divorce right now. Think of Gabby at the top of her career. Think of Gabby with the world spotlight on her. Think of Gabby at the apex of all that she has worked for. And there she is, on one hand, over the last few years, training for the Olympics, and on the other hand, as a young 16-year-old girl who loves her father, knows that this time when dad comes home, he will not be coming home. Luke 2, 1 through 7 says, "Now in those days a decree went out from Caesar Augustus that a census be taken of all the inhabited earth. This was the first census taken while Quirinius was governor of Syria. And everyone was on his way to register the census, each to his own city. Joseph also went from Galilee, from the city of Nazareth to Judea, to the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and family of David, in order to register along with Mary, who was engaged to him and was with child. While they were there, the days were completed for her to give birth. And she gave birth to her firstborn son, and she wrapped him in clothes and laid him in a manger, because there was no room for them in the inn." I know that you don't mind Carl Lavallais coming by. And I know that maybe one of two of you were kind of excited just to hear that he was coming. But now that you actually got dressed and made your way here and considered the other things that you could have done this morning, you are saying, wait a minute, I got there, we're talking about Gabby, but how could we be talking about Mary? I mean, Carl, have you lost it a little bit? I mean, are you slipping a little bit? I mean, what does those two have to do with each other? Yes, I know what you're thinking. This is Sunday, August the 5th, 2012. Christmas is over for some time and won't be back until 4 months. It is 100 plus degrees in Austin, and you reading a Nazareth text about a birth of Christ. I mean, why is he reading this text? It must be that he got the call late. Maybe he didn't have anything else and just warmed up some. I mean, a really old something to preach to us this morning. I mean, maybe he lost his way or something, and he just fumbled around and came across this text. I mean, I am thinking Olympics, not Christmas. I'm thinking barbecue, not turkey and ham. I'm thinking medals, not presents. I mean, why did you show up with this text today? Well, before you assume that too soon, let me share at least 3 things with you. Number one, I've been preaching a long time. And I've been preaching long enough that if you catch me walking in the door and ask me to preach, I'll come up with at least 5 good sermons. Number 2, there is no biblical mandate that says that the birth narrative can only be preached at Christmas. The crucifixion at Easter, Psalm 23 at a funeral, and Nehemiah doing a building campaign. I mean, I wondered about it too. But God led me to and back to this text over and over again. And he said, Carl, I want you to see this picture of victory and defeat. Then my wife reminded me on the way down here that parents don't just pull out baby pictures during birthdays. If you get an excited mom or dad, they'll pull out pictures at any time on you. It is true that we have this story down. We have nicely packaged and stored it. And like our Christmas decorations, we know how and when to pull it out and adore it, and when and how to put it back in the attic. And most of us don't touch this text until November or December. You know, life doesn't always come in neat packages that you can take out of the attic at a certain time of the year. Sometimes life comes with surprises that will not wait until December. You can't always wait until after Thanksgiving 2012 before you need this word again. What Mary heard was a bit startling, but it sounded like a neat package. The angel seemed to have had an answer for everything. He told her not to fear what would happen to her and assured her that just in case she had more questions or concerns that might come up, then he said to her, for nothing will be impossible with God. I mean, wasn't that a final guarantee? He told her that you were highly favored, that you were honored among women, that the Spirit will come up on you. And when she was perplexed concerning the situation, he gave her a guarantee, and he said to her, Mary, here is my black card. Here is my American Express card. Here, if you run into any situation, you just show this one. For nothing will be impossible with God. You see, an angel brought her a promise. I mean, did you see the promise in chapter 1, verses 26 through 32? Did you see when he said to her, greetings, favored one? The Lord is with you. And behold, you will conceive in your womb and bear a son, and you shall name him Jesus, and he will be great, and he will be called the Son of the Most High, and the Lord God would give him the throne of his father David. The angel brought her a promise, and she became perplexed, and in her being perplexed, she asked him only one question. She said, how can these things be, seeing that I'm a virgin? Stay with me, I'm headed somewhere. She said, how can these things be, seeing that I'm a virgin? Because you see, Mary thought through this thing, and she asked one question because she only considered one possibility of what might go wrong. The only thing that she thought would be an issue was the fact that she was a virgin and wondered how she could conceive. But he broke down the process for her. And he broke down the process and told her, don't worry about that, because the Spirit will come up on you. And the Spirit will impregnate you. And out of that, you will bear a son. Have you ever been in a situation where God gave you a promise and you were perplexed, and it seemed that God or others, or even through a message, that someone broke down the process for you? And once he broke down the process, then in chapter 2 is the Magnificat, where she burst in praise. She says, I got it now. You've answered all my questions now. I'm not worried about anything now. And so she burst into praise, but then the birth came with problems. Nothing shall be impossible. Then God, let me ask you a question. If nothing shall be impossible, then how hard is it to have a hotel room waiting for them? If nothing shall be impossible, then why would we be in a situation where we arrive to the place and the point of blessings and there is no room in the inn? If nothing shall be impossible, then didn't you know before I traveled from here to there what was going on before I got there? You see, it's not just that Gabby was one who had to travel from Virginia to Iowa to get to the place of preparing for her blessing, but Mary had to also travel from where she was to get to the place of her blessing, and the angel has answered all of her questions and said to her, nothing shall be impossible. Can you understand? If nothing shall be impossible, how minute, how small it is of God just to have a room key available for her. I mean, come on. I mean, even GMZ can make available a hotel room. I mean, even if my cousin calls me and say, Carl, I'm in Dallas this weekend, I could get him a hotel room. She has this wonderful promise, but she faces these problems, and she's experiencing victory and defeat. Have you ever been there? Have you ever been blessed and burdened at the same time? Have you ever had answers and questions? Have you ever experienced a breakthrough and a breakdown and even sometimes a breakup all at the same time? Have you ever walked through the door of amazing opportunity only to face an arsenal of opposition? Have you ever been glad, sad, and mad at God all at the same time for coming up with a big idea, rearranging your agenda, setting a course for you, and giving directions when you didn't even ask for it? I mean, we don't find any place where Mary was ever praying to have a baby. I mean, after all, Mary was preparing to get married. She didn't ask for this. This is God's idea. And God, if it's your idea, why don't you take care of the details that go along with your idea? God, if it's your idea and you are omniscient, you know all things. You are omnipresent, you're everywhere at the same time. You're omnipotent, you have all power. Then how could you know all things, be everywhere at the same time, and have all power, and when we arrive, there's no room for us in the end? I mean, consider that at least when Gabby got to Iowa, there was a place for her. But what you should know is that this was not the original place for her. You see, there was a host family who had considered receiving Gabby. Stay with me. But the host family that originally considered receiving Gabby started thinking about what it would be like for an African American to be with a Caucasian host family in a place like Des Moines, Iowa. All right, since y'all are holy, I'll just go on and say what one of the concerns were that came out at the Olympics. Who's going to do her hair? You know, Stevie and Betty Jane, they didn't mind taking in a little colored girl, but who's going to do her hair? What kind of food does she eat? Are we sure that our habits are the same as ours? What if we expose her to our little kids? And so what happened is she had her plans all set and got to Iowa based on the original host family who turned her down when she got there. And what happened is Ms. Parsons' daughter happened to work out and be in a training at the same gym of Coach Chow where Gabby was going, and she said, I'll take her in. She can come and be a part of my family. And once she came to be a part of the family, then she said, we noticed that she wouldn't sit at the table, so we put her in the middle of the table. We noticed that she didn't really want to be with the kids, so I'd say, hey, these are your little sisters. She said, we took her to church with us. We took her to the grocery store with us. We didn't just have her in our house. We made her part of our family. Well, let me go back to this scene of victory and defeat, because it raises an interesting question when your present predicament doesn't look like your past promise. It raises an interesting question, and I would say that I'll just say it for Mary. And the question is, God, when you said that, did you mean this? In fact, I need you to say that back to me. When you said that, did you mean this? God, when you said I was highly favored, did you mean I would be in these conditions? God, when you said that I was number one among women, I mean, did you see that I would be sleeping here next to a cow and a sheep? God, when you said that I would have a son and his name would be Jesus and that he would be a king, when you said that, did you mean this? Has anybody ever had a season in your life where you considered the past promise that God made to you and your present predicament didn't line up with your past promise, and you had taken a step based on his word, and you want to ask God, when you said that, did you mean this? I know that I asked you for a man, but now that I got the man that you sent, when you said that, did you mean this? I know that I asked you for a child, but this child that I thought was a blessing from you is now giving me hell. When you said that, did you mean this? God, I know I was hungry and I was broke, and I said I would take anything for a job, but now that these folk are getting on my last nerve, I mean my reserve nerve, God, when you said that, did you mean this?